Episode 4 of Department Q begins with more shots of the past. Merritt retrieves William's hat from the ferry, but she's immediately grabbed and bundled in the back of a car from a seemingly familiar voice nearby. When she awakens, she finds herself inside this pressurized tank. Back in the present, Carl heads over to therapy with Rachel. When the conversation turns to Jasper, she realizes that Carl's issues are being compounded by the responsibility leveled on his shoulders. Before they can dive deeper into this though, their time is up and the hilarious banter between them continues out the door. Carl heads back to the station next, where he overhears Logan looking into the shooting case and decides to get involved. Now, the initial theory about the shooter coming in through the back or arriving before them to wait don't hold much weight. Carl explains here that there were bins piled up at the back door, so it would have been pretty impossible to come in without making a ton of noise. The CCTV footage also shows someone in McDonald's 25 minutes before the shooting starts, and the timing is very tight for this gunman to break in and wait. So what does this mean? Well, Carl believes there may have been more than one assailant, which is something they completely overlooked initially, with both waiting in the car for them to show up. Rose speaks to Hardy and she's downcast about being cast aside on this case. She doesn't see the Moore situation as a big deal, even though it kind of is, until Hardy sets her straight. He suggests she go and see the constable, but get him on her side by making him feel important. Hardy encourages her to look into the day-to-day patterns of Merritt's life and, in particular, what ripples may have misaligned after her disappearance. Rose shows up at Moore next, and after buttering up Cunningham, she turns her attention to Jennings. It's here we learn that Merritt came back for Jennings' funeral, hinting at a close tie between them. It would also appear she may have been in on the robbery too, given Jennings' family were desperate and their business close to going bust. A robbery would be just what they need to get back on track. Heading over to Jennings' house, Colin, the constable's son, joins Rose on the trip. There's clearly no love lost here between him and Cunningham though, and Colin reveals that there was a tech photo of the room William was found in. Someone, i.e. Cunningham, circled something on the floor with a black marker, which happens to be that aforementioned necklace. Clive Jennings' business works with hazardous material, but we don't find out exactly what. There are numerous dead birds in the area and it could be a crucial clue, but for now, Rose leaves empty-handed. Back home, Carl is visited by his estranged ex, Victoria. She sits with Martin and drinks wine in the kitchen, eventually going on to mention how Jasper idolized him despite the fact that he's run away and is staying with his grandparents at the moment. Carl scoffs at the notion that Jasper actually cares until he finds out that when he was in hospital, Jasper stayed with him the entire time. She's quick to grill into him about what sort of example he's setting as a dad, and it gives him food for thought. Martin believes Victoria's onto something though and wants to talk about Leith Park that night. Carl is not in the mood but decides to open up all the same, explaining how guilty he feels about the bullet and how it hit Hardy's spine and slowed down enough to save his life as it pierced his neck. This soon shuts Martin up. Back at the basement, Akram and Rose discuss the new revelations regarding these crime scene photos. The circled necklace is the same chain that Merritt took from Jamie, which initially belonged to Lila. It was listed on the insurance claim, but she came back for it on the day of Jennings' funeral. When Carl finds out what Rose has, found out, she pokes holes in her theory regarding the bird and how it's connected to the boat. Rose admits she's unsure how everything connects together, and as far as they can tell, Merritt was a loner, she didn't have any friends, and there's nothing here to suggest life was changed much after her disappearance. The only exception stems from a letter Merritt received from someone called S, who could be an old flame. Within her office, a woman called Sabrine worked there, so Carl brings her in for questioning. She's quite open, scoffing at the potential relationship they could have had, given she doesn't bat for that team. Sabrine admires the woman though, admitting that Merritt didn't care what people thought of her and she thrived on the hostility of her workplace. The only potential individual that could be of interest at work is Stephen Burns, and Carl is very quick to go and question him at the pub. It doesn't go well, and it's a pretty prickly conversation, all things considered. Whether Stephen actually is the mysterious S or not is unclear, but we do find out at the end of the episode. Sabrine had earlier pointed to Merritt's colleague Liam Taylor, and he also happens to be someone Carl knows too. He heads out and speaks to him next, where he finds out Liam was having an affair with her, but he kept it quiet from his wife. It lasted a month, but Merritt was the one who initially ended it. It seems it was all physical for her and there weren't any feelings, with her flippant line of "thanks, see you around" confirming as much. They met at the hotel called Prince's Garden and she always paid, with the whole affair occurring a year before she disappeared. Back then, Merritt used a different name, Lila Graham. She was using an alias and even had a card under that name too. This deepens the investigation, and Carl immediately shows at the hotel looking for answers. He puts heat on the poor receptionist, and the guy eventually cracks, revealing that she stayed in the same room 6 times in the 2 months before she disappeared. Now, although Lila Graham's name is on the computer, it doesn't necessarily mean that Merritt was there. Liam Taylor is the authorised signature on file, but it's not Liam who was there last. It was another man by the name of Sam Hague. So what happened to Sam? Well, Merritt was using him for sex, and apparently his death is connected to Merritt. And that is where episode 4 of Department Q comes to an end. Episode 5 of Department Q starts with Carl and Akram asking Paul questions about Sam Hague. It turns out he's been dead for 4 years, and he was a pretty avid climber back then. It would appear that he went climbing on his own one day without the right equipment and fell to his doom. Sam was a risk taker and very much a loner too. When he wasn't at work, he'd be rock climbing. He climbed the crag regularly, usually once a week, but when it was a bit less busy. For Sam, it would take 45 minutes or maybe a bit longer when free soloing without a rope to reach the top. This story though has a lot of holes in it, which Akram is quick to point out. Sam's equipment was still locked inside his car, and no keys were found at a crime scene or on his person either. However, with all of these facts being clearly ignored, it points to someone else entirely being involved. What are we not being told here? In the past, we see more flashbacks with Merritt. She's not happy with Sam sniffing around her workplace, and his editor at the Scottish Telegraph has decided that Sam should write up a story about her background regarding more. He pries into her history and lack of opening up about her family, hinting at something deeper underneath the surface. Merritt bites back though, bringing up how Sam is anonymous online and has a similar sense of wanting to protect his own persona. He keeps himself reserved from his workplace, and even they can't figure out his unpredictable nature. Back in the present, Rachel shows up in the basement looking for Carl. When she doesn't find him, she does run into Rose instead, who asks about Dr. Sonnenberg. This is a person she was initially seeing after her heart attack, and it's immediately clear that Rose has OCD and PTSD following an incident in the past where she was a passenger in pursuit when they hit an elderly pedestrian. This is the root cause of her trauma and why she's so twitchy, not to mention reluctant about getting behind the wheel of a car. Interestingly, Rachel knows who Merritt is too. She met her once at a party with an ex who was also a lawyer too, but we don't get much beyond that. When she leaves, Rose FaceTimes with Hardy and shows off the board they've been working on for this case. He recognises the bird insignia, given his ties as a fisherman, and we learn that this bird is not a booberry, but actually a cormorant. He wants scans of this though in order to look deeper into this connection. When Carl shows up, Hardy has a theory. He believes that given Jamie was poor and Lila was not, there's some motive here around money. Lila's account is actually linked to a trust account in the Channel Islands, the bank on Jersey. The trail has gone cold here, but Carl's not particularly happy when he finds out the Hardy symptoms aren't quite so bad as he thought. He's been in rehab for a while, and he may even be able to walk again at some point. Moira heads down to the basement in the midst of this and wants to be walked through what happened with Merritt. Akram is also grilled over the way he handled the junkies too, swiftly reminded that this isn't Syria and he needs to be careful. When Carl returns, he ignores Moira and speaks to his team about how they need to look further back in the timeline and, specifically, checking who the trust fund actually belongs to. Given William is not able to look after his share, it would naturally be passed to his legal guardian. And who is that? Well, it's Wallace. Carl confronts Wallace and learns that she's been siphoning money out of William's trust fund all this time. Furthermore, William himself is not doing well, lying on his stomach in his bed with drawings all over the floor of the potential killer. Wallace has been running an absolute racket here, with William, alongside other patients in her care, heavily sedated. Carl and the others take William and bring him to Claire's, someone who will actually look after him properly. Back in the basement, Rose speaks to Carl about Merritt's bank statements. She's gone through all her old receipts and credit card statements, but this time she's gone back for a year and seen something that stands out. All the shops she went to were close to the Crown offices, but one place in particular stood out given it's not nearby. This comes in the form of a laundrette near the Cowgate. She showed up there a week before she went missing, and although Carl doesn't say it, he's clearly impressed by Rose's thoroughness and suggests she go and investigate further alongside Akram. At the laundrette, Rose speaks to the owner, Shirley, who knows exactly who Merritt is and curses them out for bringing her name up. As we soon learn, this is Kirsty's mum. Remember her? Kirsty Atkins was the one put behind bars for a drug addiction, and although Merritt initially showed to apologise, she lost her nerve before she did and hurriedly left. Kirsty is still in Pentland's prison right now, which is where they put her after Merritt almost got her killed in Sawton prison. Off Akram and Rose go, heading in to see Kirsty. She's ready to start again and disappear once she's out from behind bars. Akram immediately cuts through Kirsty's tough facade and can tell that she's absolutely terrified. The attack on her life, where she lost an eye, was supposed to actually kill her. She revealed important information about Finch and was killed for it, but Merritt bailed on her at a crucial time. The plan was supposed to be that in exchange for testifying, Kirsty would get an early release. But at the last minute, she changed her mind as Kirsty wasn't credible. It seems like Kirsty pissed off someone high up, as 2 lifers behind bars were paid £500 in their commissary to finish the job and kill Kirsty. After speaking to Merritt on a smuggled phone prior to the attack, pleading for her life, Merritt hung up on her when she found out Kirsty was on drugs again. Kirsty was attacked several times afterwards, and not only was she stabbed in the eye, but also through her lung and another that missed her heart by a few millimeters. Hearing this, our past timeline sees Merritt decide to go and speak to Sam Hague about what she knows, which is where episode 5 of Department Q comes to an end. So the case continues to get more complicated, and here we see that there's more to this than we first thought. The Finch court case is a big sticking point and potentially the connecting tissue tying everything together. It's clear that Merritt was put in a difficult position, and while there's no excuse for her hanging up on Kirsty and hanging her out to dry, she did appear to try and do the right thing after the attack on her life. But who's trying to keep her quiet and why? It's clear now that there's a bigger conspiracy at work, and this could tie into Kyle's situation at the station too, as the police investigation appears to have been botched there too. Hopefully we'll find out more details in the episodes ahead, as the ending here leaves things on a tenuous cliffhanger. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.